All right, welcome back to the Comics Multiverse. Today, my guest is Alex Paknadel, who is currently working with Oni Press, who is running a Kickstarter for Cult of the Lamb, which I'm told is a video game. Um, so, but Alex has also written books for DC, Marvel. But let's bring Alex in, find out about him and the campaign, and some other stuff if we can. How's it going, Alex?
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining across the pond.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Yeah, no, it's about 3 p.m. here, so yeah, I always kind of struggle a bit with the time difference, but we managed to find a sweet spot after weeks of wrangling.
Right. Yeah. So before we get into talking about the campaign and whatever, tell us a little bit about yourself, about how you got into comics as a reader and as a professional.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm English, as you can tell. And I mean, we do have a very sort of vibrant comics culture over here, sort of principally centered around. I mean, there's a lot of humor comics like Viz, Private Eye, but the most recognizable, I suppose, for American audiences is probably 2000 AD, and Judge Dredd, and a lot of the sort of strips that run in there, and sort of Crisis and sort of various kind of offshoots. I didn't really come up through that system. I mean, a lot of my peers and friends in the sort of British comic scene were sort of raised in the sort of 2000 AD format, so sort of 8-page, 6 to 8 page chapters, very punchy, very bombastic, very compressed. But I mean, I was actually raised on, and I do mean raised, not in the sense that I ate them, but I was raised on Marvel comics principally. My dad was one of the sort of very early specialty store customers in the UK, and would collected comics all throughout the kind of early 1970s, like right up to my birth. My birth actually prevented him from collecting comics because he couldn't afford them anymore. So I think it's like it stops like round about like X-Men, like Uncanny X-Men 183 is like where his collection stops, and I'm like, that's the month I was born, right? It's like, yeah, pretty much. So yeah,
the pain is all too real.
Beautifully. Yeah, right. But like my dad literally taught me to read with Marvel Treasury editions, man. Like my earliest memories are sort of sitting on his knee when him sort of like an Avengers Wedding Special, or like Howard the Duck or something, and that's how I was taught to read. So they've always been with me, and those little kind of mass market, like very small kind of paperbacks, with the sort of very early sort of Lee Kirby Fantastic Four, the very early Hulks, the very early Spider-Mans. Again, I would just kind of head off into my room, very very young, and sort of learn to read that way. So they've always been with me, and then I started collecting them for myself. So there was sort of my dad had this sort of big hiatus, but I was always reading his collection, and he did it in this way that was kind of precision engineered to make me a fan, really, which is that he had this like, you remember that there's that Simpsons episode where like Bart and Ralph Wiggum kind of find like the Chiefs, like find all the Chiefs stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, Ralphie, how many times have I told you not to go into my forbidden cabinet of mystery? That was my relationship with my dad's like comic closet, right? Like I couldn't open it; it was locked. So like I used to leave, and I used to like steal the key and like open it up, and just like be found hours later, surrounded by like a load of like Barry Windsor Smith Conans, and a load of chocolate bars. So when I started getting a bit of pocket money, sorry, it's very long-winded, but I mean, I started collecting comics right around the kind of generational turnover. So like I was like in the queue for, Clement Lee's like X-Men 1. I was in the queue for that. That was like my first comic buying, and it was the biggest thing ever, right? So then that was what kind of got me right, and I've been kind of into them ever since. And in terms of my kind of professional engagement, like I remember someone told me like how old Liefeld was, and like I was still like 11, like I was like 12, 13 years younger, but I just remember thinking like, wow, like that guy's super young. I'm gonna do this by the time I'm 13. By the time I'm 13, I'm gonna be writing comics. And I think like I undershot by like 20 years, maybe. Maybe 20 years. Like I'm a late bloomer. But like I got there in the end, and like that, but that was always, there were a couple of kind of digressions and a couple like, maybe I should be a social worker, but really I just like always wanted to write comics. And then like the opportunity finally kind of arose, like, because and I view it in those terms, like where I live, I mean, the thing about England is, it's very small, it's easy to bump into people, right, in a small country. So where I live in the north of England, Andy Diggle lives here as well. The writer of, The Losers, and like The Expanse more recently. He and I ended up becoming friends. And like for years, man, when I was working like in marketing and stuff, we would kind of go down to the local bar, and I would tell him all of my dumb ideas for comics, over and over and over again, until eventually, just out of frustration, and very productive frustration, I might add, he just went, right, stop, I'm not going to listen to any of your ideas anymore until you actually write them down. And I, and I was like, right, I'm going to show you, friend. So like I wrote them down, and, we were at, so there's a comic convention called Thought Bubble, which is like one of the UK's sort of premier shows. And he sat me down in front of Will Dennis, who was then Vertigo's group editor, and just went, right, that thing you wrote down, tell him. So I told him, and then, Will called me up a couple of weeks later and said, look, I can't get this across the line at Vertigo because, DC's like moving west. This was just before the big move. But I made a call to Boom Studios, and they want to talk to you. And then within a couple of days, like I was on the phone to Matt Gagnon and Bryce Carlson at Boom, and they commissioned a book. This was 2015, which went on to be Arcadia, which was my first. So like my first comic book out of the gate, I had like an 8-issue miniseries, which was like intimidating, but cool. So, and that was kind of, I mean, it's when people kind of ask me, I think, like how do you kind of break into comics? I mean, there's the sort of standard response, which is, I mean, this is not me. Someone said this. It's one of those sort of apocryphal things. But I think breaking into comics is like breaking out of prison. So like every time you do it, like the route gets bricked up after you. So like nobody breaks in the same way. So when anyone tells you like this is the way to break into comics, like it isn't. Like it's always how you do it, right? And also like staying in is more important. Staying in is more difficult than breaking in, right? But I always try to be kind of upfront, like, how did you break into comics? And I always say, well, like I had a lot of help, really. I had a lot of help. I hopefully I've, got talent. I think I have, but yeah, I had a lot of very lovely people, helping me along the way.
Very nice. So let's kind of chat about your current project with Oni, Cult of Lamb,
Sure.
which is I guess I don't play a lot of video games, so I guess it's based on a video game. Can you kind of give us the background?
Sure, yeah. It's so the video game, which is published by a company called Devolver, is a really fun fantasy epic about an anthropomorphic lamb in a sort of like a religious dystopia presided over by these very evil bishops of like this world's old faith. and they've heard this prophecy that, you know, a lamb is basically going to kind of undo this old religion that allows them to sort of keep this world in this vice-like grip. And so they sacrifice all of the lambs, and they get down to the very last one. And when they sacrifice this final lamb, instead of just dying, this lamb is resurrected by this mysterious figure called the One Who Waits, and is basically told, you know, establish a cult in my name, and I will give you back your life and allow you to kind of take revenge on the people who killed you. And so that's what the lamb does. So you have this very cute lamb that's wearing this kind of, you know, black, you know, magic black crown, with, you know, red glowing eyes, hacking various monsters to pieces in this very beautifully rendered, very evocative sort of fantasy landscape. Meanwhile, picking up sort of, you know, rescuing various sort of woodland creatures from sacrifice and converting them to this cult, which, and then, you know, is fueled by their worship to become even more powerful and sadistic. It's a lot of fun. But I suppose what attracted me to the project, so I was at New York Comic Con last year. Hunter Gorinson, Oni's publisher, approached me and said, "Look, do you want to do this?" And I said, "Look, I'm going to be upfront with you. Like, I'm not a huge video game guy, right? That's you know." He said, "Just play the game and tell me what you think, and if there's any interest, circle back." So he gave me a code, and I started playing it, and it was a ton of fun. But I think what really struck me, I just found the themes just really, you know, when I was playing video games back in the age of sail, there wasn't that much. I felt like there was less sort of thematic sort of density to them. But this is a game, I think, that absolutely kind of speaks to what's happening now, sort of socially, politically, you know, the sacrifice of the innocent, scapegoating, you know, religious fundamentalism. You know, it's a ton of fun, but it's also very much kind of in dialogue with those things that are sort of pressing issues that, you know, I mean, I mean, I wouldn't say interest me, because that assumes that they're sort of quite light fare, but fascinate me certainly. And that was really kind of my aim. And so I just sort of ran with that. And I remember sort of, you know, I was a little concerned when I started out, because you know, there's these very cute characters that are doing these kind of unspeakably violent things. And I remember sort of, I was talking to my editors and to the game developer and just sort of saying, well, you know, do you want me to kind of lean into the sort of cute, you know, the cutesiness of it? And they said, no, just play it straight. Just play it straight. You know, the cutesiness is over here, and the story is over here. So just go as dark as you want, go as sadistic as you want, and just, you know, do your thing. Don't feel that you have to kind of lighten the tone. And yeah, what can I say? Like, I'm having a blast, and I'm writing stuff that I would be. This to me is like an index of engagement with a project, right? It's something that I would want to write independently of it being a game franchise, if you know what I mean. Like, I'd want to do it anyway, which, you know, that's how I know it's going to be good.
Now, is this the first, the Kickstarter, is it for like just the first issue, or is it like it's going to be a series or ongoing eventually?
No, it's for so the Kickstarter is called it's Cult of the Lamb, the first verse, right? So what you're getting with this Kickstarter is the first installment, basically. So you're getting the first 4 issues, which is the first kind of complete arc with a beginning and a middle and an end, obviously, and it's designed to follow the first biome in the game pretty closely. But because you get this kind of aerial view in the game, you don't have much access to the kind of characters' sort of inner lives. So that's what I've done, really, is I'm tracking the events of the game pretty closely, but I'm installing character-based rationales for kind of everything that you see. right? So providing the kind of emotional backstory that fans have been sort of clamoring for, really, and also providing themselves through a load of like wildly inventive sort of fan generated content, and it seems to be, I mean, at the moment, I think, I mean, what the Kickstarter's been going less than a week, and I think we're up around $370,000, which is insane.
Bonkers.
Yeah, bonkers numbers.
Yeah, I kind of get where you're going with infusing personality into the characters being a game, because my son is big into Minecraft, and I found out that Max Brooks wrote some Minecraft books, and those are some actually fun books to, get into.
Yeah,
So,
it's a really fun exercise because you're kind of getting to backfill stuff, and like a lot of the kind of grunt work's been done for you, so you just get to kind of, characters, the fun stuff. So you really get to kind of play with whole cloth, which I think is, it's you're not doing it on kind of easy mode at all, but it's a lovely thing to kind of not have to kind of build the world alongside it. You can just focus on sort of creating kind of compelling character arcs and what have you.
now, is there a character when you were writing it that you kind of latched onto or kind of developed an affinity for as you were going?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, so I've created a character, a kind of POV character for the series, because you've got the lamb, but you don't have, but the lamb is although the lamb's the protagonist. I think to introduce this world and to sort of introduce the stakes and the potential kind of flaws, because this is basically, it's an innocent lamb that's been charged with this kind of dark being, with exacting its revenge. I mean, it's quite a sort of dark, it's quite a dark arc, right? So I thought, okay, well, let's introduce a kind of character who meets the lamb at their most innocent and then kind of tracks their descent into becoming this kind of violent, bloodthirsty sort of engine of vengeance. And then, the audience kind of gets to witness that sort of fall from grace from this POV character's perspective. And then, that, to my mind, immediately attaches kind of quite sort of, interesting emotional stakes to the whole thing, because you're rooting for the lamb. You're absolutely rooting for the lamb, because the sort of the political and religious context that this lamb's kind of fighting against is absolutely unbearable. These are bad people that are being kind of hacked to pieces. But you also get this kind of this more tragic aspect, I suppose, and that's kind of what I'm really invested in. That's the thing I'm having the most fun with.
So tell me about a little bit about working with Troy Little and one Gaydon. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joy, right? Because there were some discussions initially over who would who would sort of illustrate the book, and the one thing that we didn't want to do was necessary, it had to evoke the game, certainly, but I really didn't want someone who was just going to sort of reproduce it frame for frame. It would have to be a very accomplished kind of comic artist in their own right, and that's who we have with Troy, who has, I mean, I got the art back for the first issue literally 2 days ago, and I had that feeling, and it's the feeling you always want, which is that's what I described, but 20 times better, which is the feeling that you always want to get, and you don't always get. You get it more often than not, but just someone who's kind of taken the prompt that you've given, and has absolutely kind of crafted it and made it their own, with like really kind of consummate sort of storytelling chops. So I'm looking at the thing thinking, well, that's kind of what I wrote, but it's also not what I wrote because it's much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a dream. It's a dream, honestly. You know, you want every time you get art in your inbox, you know, at its best, it's Christmas morning. You know, that's what's so intoxicating
So
about working in comics, right?
yeah. So can you kind of walk us through the different levels of pledging?
No, I
Okay.
cannot.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't
That's
know.
fine.
Sorry, I don't have that information to hand. I can look it up for you now.
No,
Sorry.
that's fine. I'll include it when I post the when I post this. But sorry for didn't mean to.
Absolutely, no, absolutely not. I mean, I'm fairly certain that if you pledge some money, you'll get a book. And there are various books to choose from, and there are various formats to choose from. There are various covers to choose from. I think there's some original art. There are some prints that are some reward, and also, you know, they're doing the reward tier thing as well. So, you know, each one we kind of crash through. You know, the incentive. So, like, I think like we've got spot gloss and like bookmarks now, because I think
Mhm.
we you know we blasted through like 200K. So I mean, it's becoming a more and more handsome package by the day.
Definitely. I mean, with the way it's the rate and the amount that it's funding, you know, this should definitely be, you know, something that people should check
It's
out. And
honestly, it's like it's wild, man. I'm just looking. Yeah, here we go. 3,729% funded as of right now. Yeah, that's crazy pants. Um,
now,
yeah,
is this your
my
first
goodness.
experience with Kickstarter?
It is, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it started to become more of a thing, didn't it? I mean, you know, I think when distribution kind of got all snarled up, it became, you know, a much more kind of viable route during the pandemic. I mean, I remember um, uh, like Dave Rubin and Matt Kint, I think, you know, they kind of got that ball rolling, didn't they? And you know, now it's you know, it's an absolutely kind of viable way of sort of bringing a mass market comic, you know, to market. It's a really exciting time, I think.
Before we move to the next segment, do you have anything else that you wanted to mention about the campaign or the book?
Um, Not a huge amount. I mean, it's all I can say is, and you know, I'm not very good at sales pitches, so all I'll say is I'm having a great time. And I think I'm one of those people where I think if I'm having a great time, I produce good work. So, and I know that the rest of the team is firing on all cylinders. All I'll say is, you know, yes, it's a video game adaptation. And that means that, yes, there are a lot of people who have an idea, a very fixed idea in their head of what it should be, and how it should be evoked and how it should translate to other media. But all I'll say is, you know, this thing is being made with real love and real care. And yeah, that's not a line. I mean it.
All right. Well, if are you ready to play 5 questions?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay.
All
Hit
right.
me. Hit
Question
me.
number one.
Social
Who?
security number. Let me think.
Yeah. 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 That's question number 5. Spoilers.
Yeah.
All right. Question number one. Uh, who are your what creators do you get inspiration from for your writing and stuff like that?
Specifically comics.
Whatever. It can be comics, it can be
Yeah.
literature, it can be music.
Yeah. Okay. So, comics wise, I mean, it's a platitude, but Alan Moore, David Mazzucchelli, Barry Windsor Smith, Al Columbia. I would say are kind of huge sort of formative influences. Pardon me. I would say in terms of craft, Al Ewing, Denny O'Neil, Annie Nocenti, writing more generally, William Golding, George Steiner, Georgy Gospodinov. I try to read widely. I try to be sort of, like culturally omnivorous, I guess. Film, I'm a Cronenberg guy. I mean, I think The Fly is the best movie ever made. I will die on that hill. And musically, I mean, it's just such an iceberg, isn't it? But I mean, in terms of what I kind of come back to again and again, I would suppose Bowie probably.
Okay. Question number 2. Now, I know you've written a couple of some Doctor Who stuff. Do you have which Doctor would you want to be the traveling companion of, and why?
Oh, that's an interesting one, because that's not quite the same question as who's your favorite Doctor. Interesting. But I would still say, favorite Doctor and one I'd like to accompany would still be 13.
Okay.
Just because I find the world weary kind of curmudgeonliness. Oh no. Sorry, is Capaldi 12 or 13? 12, right?
12, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 12. I beg your pardon, 12. No, it would be 12. It's Capaldi. I just love the kind of the weary cynicism, the kind of the battle worn Doctor that we got with Capaldi. And it was funny. I remember I was at a Who convention in LA with Paul Cornell, who's a lovely man, and Jodie had just taken over, right? And I'd seen the first few episodes and everything, and it was a really interesting, because it kind of clarified my relationship with fandom, I think, in a really what I thought was kind of quite an interesting way, because I was, people were asking me, and there were people who were already dressed as Jodie, right? And they said, "Oh, so what do you think?" I said, "Well, it's not. I don't think it's for me, but like, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing with me, I mean, when Capaldi took over, like, I'd just become a father, I just kind of got a mortgage, all this kind of grown up stuff was happening, and there was a Doctor who's just kind of tired, right?
Yeah.
And so I recognize, I mean, I think, like, Heaven Sent, I think, is just one of the best episodes, not just best episodes of Doctor Who, but one of the best episodes of sort of televised drama, full stop, right? But that is very much, it's an aging protagonist at their wits' end, right? Like, just, at the end, right? And it just, that kind of, that eternal return, that eternal repetition, just spoke to me, man. I mean, I was crying by the end of it. I was just so invested. And I think, but I remember just thinking, I remember seeing the reactions to Jodie's announcement, and just seeing, like, all these, like, 8, like, 10-year-old girls, like, losing it, man, because, then there's, that's their Doctor now, and that's beautiful, right? It doesn't have to be mine. And I feel like there's an element of that, like, I feel like there's an element of that in fandom, that part of the sort of humility of fandom, maybe. I mean, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I wonder if that part of the humility of fandom is going, you know what, this isn't mine anymore, and that's okay, because it's someone else's now, and that's a beautiful thing,
Yeah, I think I kind of like the Capaldi Doctor also, because, I mean, Matt Smith and David Tennant were kind of, let's make some jokes and stuff, and he's more of the, he did have some funny moments, but they were, like, very dry and
Yeah.
not humor for uh, humor for the fact of being trying to be humor, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And I mean, I watched the Jodie, episodes, and I think I think with some better writing, I would have enjoyed them more. It wasn't her as the doctor. It was just I think the
Oh, yeah,
writing and
she was absolutely. Again, I mean, I can't speak to the writing, but I thought she was great. It just all I felt was that as I said, I just really liked the idea of this crusty, battle worn doctor, and the thing that Jodie did, I think, was just smash a big reset button that was needed.
yeah,
Because I think the show was like kids weren't watching it anymore. I mean, that's the problem, right? Is all the shows that I really loved in the Capaldi run are basically kind of adult drama, which is not really something that the show was designed to be, right? It wasn't.
right.
It wasn't. It started out as explicitly as a kids' educational show, supposed to teach kids history. So if kids aren't watching, you got a problem, right? But I still feel kind of grateful, and lucky that we kind of got that weird sort of stolen run where it was, for a little while, it was kind of like, yeah, here's one for the jaded mums and dads,
Yeah, and I'm interested to see where the new season goes. Honestly,
Yeah, I mean, oh God, Shooty's fantastic though, right? I mean, my goodness, I mean, it just exudes charisma. I can't wait.
yeah. I mean, I on my one of my Pandora stations kind of plays like soundtracks and stuff, and every time the Goblin song comes on, it's just it's just fun.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, can't wait.
All right, question number 3. You've
Sure.
worked, you've had some great work in Marvel and DC. Is there any characters in either universe or both that you kind of want to that you haven't had the chance to work with that you would love a chance to put your spin on?
Sure. You want to name them?
Yeah,
All right.
if you want.
Yeah, sure. I would crush Nova. I would crush Wonder Man. I would crush Multiple Man. So and I'm modest too. DC. I have a real affinity for the sort of the weird, I love all the sort of weird 80s experimental stuff, man. Like I would love to do a reboot of Thriller. I'd love to do a reboot of Tail Gunner Joe. Yeah, I mean, in terms of sort of the mainstream, I mean, I just got to do like a little bit of Batman because my buddy Ron V invited me on to do some backups in Detective Comics, which are dropping next month.
Next month, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very kind of happy about that. But so
And I really
it's lovely
enjoyed
to
your
kind of play in the
Flash
sort of Batman.
stint
Oh, thank you so
during
much,
Night
Joe. I
Terrors.
appreciate that, man. Yeah, no, that was a real labor of love, and I had a lovely moment with that, in the sense that like Cy Spurrier and I we go way back, and we didn't, when it started out, they were kind of running along kind of concurrent tracks because I was basically going to be the palate cleanser for Cy, right? But we ended up sort of coordinating pretty closely, and he's ended up, not to any great extent, but he's ended up sort of using a little bit of the stuff that I set down in those Night Terrors, I suppose 2 shots, that's mini technically. He's picked up on a lot of that, or no, a lot of that, but like a little bit of that, and that's always lovely to see. When something that you've done survives in some fashion. Like Phil Kennedy Johnson used. I created a Stone Age Hulk for our, like I did an Immortal Hulk one shot called Immortal Hulk Time of Monsters, and I went away and did a load of research into the Neolithic Levant, and ended up so I invented a Stone Age Hulk, and Phil, it was blink and you'll miss it, but like he used that guy in the first issue of his Hulk, And that was just a lovely thing. You know, it's always lovely, you know, when something that you've created exceeds you in some way. Even if it's like a derivative project, it just, you know, there's no permanence in comics, but there is every now and then. It's like, oh, someone did a callback to something you did. That's nice, you know.
All right, just so you know, I'm still here. I don't know why my camera has frozen, so I'm just going to click my picture off. So, question 4.
Mhm.
Desert Island reads five comics. I'll accept omnibuses and runs. What are you taking?
Oh, wow, man, that's horrible. I'm gonna look at my shelf real quick just so I can. All right, okay. Nothing here is going to be revelatory, I'm afraid, you know, but why not just go with classics? Okay, so I would go with Batman Year One.
Okay.
I would go with Grant Morrison's New X-Men. I would go with oh man, this is hard. One sec. I would go with Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X. I would go with yeah, Denny O'Neil and Dennis Cowan's Question. Am I on 4 yet?
Yeah, you're on 4.
I'm on 4. And finally, I need to do a curveball. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to go with 8 Ball, Klaus, 8 Ball.
Okay.
If I get the whole one, because then you get like 5 absolutely insane books in one run. So
Sounds
you
like a
got
great
Dagger
list.
Boring, the Glove Personal, the Ray Gun, the Death Ray. Sorry, you get all of that if you just say 8 Ball. So
Yeah. All right, last question. What are you currently reading? It
yeah.
can be old, it could be new, that you would recommend that people check out.
Okay. All right. So I am currently reading Dawn Runner by Ram V and Evan Cagle, which is one of the most beautiful comics ever made. I think that's fair to say. I am reading 20th Century Men by Stepan Morin and Dennis Camp. I think Dennis has just taken over Ultimates. I think he's going to be, or probably is, the next big thing, and rightly so. I am also reading. I'm reading a novel called Under the Skin by Michelle Faber, which is excellent. It was a film with Scarlett Johansson a few years ago. So I'm reading that. And like a load of academic stuff on horror, because you know I'm trying to kind of figure out. I'm trying to reverse engineer the horror genre, which is I suspect not the kind of project that's going to take 5 minutes. But there you go. Yeah. In terms of like who I read sort of on the reg, I mean, I would say, pardon me, I'll always read whatever Josh Simmons is putting out. I'll always read any new kind of Al Columbia. You know, just very kind of very interesting stuff that is often very surreal, but you just get this weird feeling that you're sort of a tourist in someone else's head, and it's not a particularly nice place to be, but it's a fascinating place to be. Yeah, that's about the size of it. That's what I'm reading right now. Oh, and I'm doing a ton of research on the mafia for a thing. So yeah.
All right. As we wrap up here, would you like to give one more pitch for the campaign and where people can find you on the social media?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's Cult of the Lamb. The first verse. You can find it on Kickstarter right now. Please do pledge. You will get some form of book for your money. It will have spot gloss. It will be very nice. We're having a great time making it, which means you'll probably have a great time reading it. And we're all super proud of it. So yeah, please take a look at that. In terms of finding me on social media, I'm just at Alex Paknadel. That's Paknadel on Twitter. I'm also I'm on Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on all the other ones. I think, but I don't have a newsletter because I don't feel like I have news to letter. But that may change. I don't know. But yeah, apart from that, yeah. I'm doing a 3-issue run of backups in Detective Comics from 1084 onwards. So 1084, 1085, 1086. When if you look in the back, that's me. So
Okay.
that's been fun. I've got to write some Batman. Yeah, so that's me.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat
Thank you for
this
having me.
afternoon, evening, morning, whatever
It's
time
a
zones.
time of day somewhere. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll run into each other at a show sometime. And you're welcome back anytime if you
I'll be
ever
up for the.
if you have
Up for the.
if you have anything else that coming up that you would like to talk about, then you're always welcome back.
Oh, I have stuff coming up, but I can't talk about it.
Okay, no, that's I said if you can talk about it, you're welcome. Or if you just want to bullshit.
It's really, really, really cool, but I can't talk about it.
Okay. So, but yeah, hopefully we'll get to meet in real life, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Chad. I really appreciate it. Thanks for finding the time.
All right, well, have a good evening.
You too.